Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the latest on the Iran conflict as the U.S. reimposes a blockade of Iranian ports. Also tonight, an increasing number of Arizona high school students are deciding not to continue their education. And a new children's book emphasizes the importance of kids believing in themselves. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. U.S. forces tonight struck several locations in coastal Iran and reimposed a naval blockade of Iranian ports. This as President Trump reversed a plan to charge fees on ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. From all angles, the conflict is once again escalating. And joining us now is Evelyn Farkas. She's director of ASU's McCain Institute. Evelyn, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. It sounds like President Trump is saying that this is all going on, bombing 3 straight nights now, I believe, the blockade, because, as he says, the Iranians failed the test of the ceasefire. Talk to us about this.
Well, the problem is that the Iranians are not negotiating seriously. Now, it sounds like behind the scenes we've also stopped negotiating, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. At this point in time, President Trump does probably need to lift the navigation, the blockade. He may have to use some more military force and eventually just basically wait out the Iranians. We need the Iranians to feel a sense of urgency. And with President Trump going back and forth, I think it's giving the Iranians an upper hand. If President Trump can say nothing and open the strait using military force if he has to, the Iranians will have to come eventually back to the negotiating table, and then we will have the upper hand because they will be coming back. We will not be begging for them to come.
But how long can they wait this out? Because they seem to be able to wait out a lot of things for a long time.
Well, I think they seem to be able to wait things out because President Trump doesn't wait very long himself. He's switched his position several times now. He hasn't waited to see how much pressure could be built up on them. And this regime, first of all, there are cracks inside. There are obviously, as you would have in any government, dissent. The hardliners want to just keep the hard line, but there are still Iranians who would prefer to negotiate because they understand at the end of the day, and this is the key thing, Ted, why would they negotiate? Because they need money. They need to rebuild their country. They need to get the economy started. And if they don't want their people out on the streets and they don't want their security forces to lay down their weapons or turn them against them, they need money.
The idea of shifting policy goes all the way to this idea where the president said 20% fee on all shipping through the strait. That has now been reversed. What's that all about?
Well, again, this is another case of the president making a threat, and then, frankly, his vice president, his secretary of state, all the legal experts, and world leaders saying, whoa, 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 that's not how this works. We know that if you build a canal like the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal, the cost of building it can be offset by a country assessing tolls. But if you have a normal, God-made, if you will, a geographic entity like the Strait of Hormuz or the Straits of Malacca, there are tons of these ocean-going, seafaring routes. They, under international law, cannot be blocked by any country. So international law says you can't place a toll on them. And if we let Iran, or if the United States started putting tolls on places like the Strait of Hormuz, you can imagine all the other straits around the world, all the other bodies like this, all these other narrow areas where you need transit to go through for trade could be blocked. And that would really cause a problem for global trade. And again, you've heard from heads of state, from companies. So President Trump was forced to essentially take back that threat. And instead, now he's saying, well, we want countries to invest.
Yeah, but again, it sounds nebulous here. He's guaranteeing safe passage, but only to those countries that invest in the United States. What does that even mean? How does any accountability on something like this? And you mentioned all those other waterways around the world. What's to keep other countries from saying, hey, you got to invest with us before we're going to let you do X, Y, and Z?
Right. There's no mechanism for this, and it's unclear which countries, this would apply to. I mean, there are shipping companies that are not countries, right, who use the strait. And by the way, we don't, if they start issuing fees, then already we have problems with insurance and the price of this trade. And already people, frankly, are avoiding the Strait of Hormuz. So the implications for the global economy are not good. And at the end of the day, maybe the Gulf states will pay something, but I don't think other countries will. And President Trump seemed to be indicating the Gulf countries. And again, they've said, maybe they've said to President Trump they'll invest in the US. We know they're investing in Trump and Kushner companies, but there's no way to keep track of this. So we need to just stand with international law, and we shouldn't, call for investment either. We just need to open the strait.
I want to get to Ukraine in a second here before we let you go, but one last point on Iran. I mean, we're nearly halfway through this 60-day period to negotiate some sort of final peace agreement. I know the ceasefire has now been blown up, but we've still got that 60-day window there. I mean, is all-out war again a real possibility, or is this just a slow burn and both sides trying to wait each other out?
I don't think, Ted, we're going to see an all out, kind of like we saw in the early phase of this bombarding of targets that are not military, for example, bridges. I think we're going to see some limited military force used against Iran to, frankly, open the Strait of Hormuz. If the Iranians don't do it by themselves, we'll have to use military force. That doesn't mean boots on the ground. There's still a lot we can do, and we are doing from the air. But I would say that 60 days is really just for President Trump to try to keep Congress out of the conversation, because he's trying not to have to get, although he should, get permission from Congress to use force and to continue this war.
Indeed. Speaking of Congress, different conversation, this one regarding Ukraine. It sounds like there's a Russian sanctions bill at work. True, the House has already gone this route. Senate now looks like it's ready to go. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm optimistic here, Ted. Unfortunately, it took, the death of Senator Lindsey Graham, who was going to push this through this week. And, maybe he would have gotten it through anyway. In any event, his colleagues understand that the best memorial that they can give him, the best testament and way to honor him, is to pass the legislation. And the Senate, they had over 80, I don't even know the number anymore, senators who were in favor of this sanctions bill. It's a tough sanctions bill on Russia, though it does give the White House, it gives the president a lot of leeway to make exceptions. Nonetheless, if this goes through, it will go to President Trump's desk, and he will sign it, and it will be a huge signal to Russia that the war is going to end soon and they will lose, and a signal to Ukraine that we are behind them.
And briefly, does that mean the tide of the war might change?
Look, Ted, it's already changing, and I think it will mean that the tide will continue to change, especially if President Trump really enforces this law to the letter, because it's quite stringent.
All right, Evelyn Farkas, ASU's McCain Institute. Thank you so much. Pleasure to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
Oh my God, you went to space.
We mean to be a part of it. We mean to lead it.
It's incredible, from slavery to space in 4 generations.
We thought we were going to be friends forever.
I can sell that to myself.
It's like you're going to Oz. It's glimmering, it's beautiful.
There's this whole universe out there. I want to find out how far we can go.
Tuesday night at 8 on Arizona PBS. When you support Arizona PBS, you plant a seed. Seeds that provide educational outreach in our community. Seeds that put our digital resources to work. Seeds that foster the trusted news coverage you expect from PBS. And seeds that continue the amazing PBS programs you love. But our garden can't keep growing without your support. Visit our website to see all the ways you can help our garden grow. Plant a seed with Arizona PBS today.
Len Fowler passed away this morning, putting up the Christmas tree. Keeled over, fell down the ladder.
Len Fowler's death wasn't all it seems.
Murder. Miss Fisher's always right.
What's that all about?
Miss Fisher's gone on holiday again, sir.
Anyone dead yet?
Only one so far, sir.
Either Len Fowler was struck by lightning indoors, or he was electrocuted.
Must you find murder everywhere?
You know very well murder finds me.
Saturday night at 9 on Arizona PBS.
10 years ago, the state set a goal of boosting post-secondary enrollment. That goal was to get 70% of graduates continuing their education after high school by the year 2030. But after 10 years, here in 2026, that enrollment number has actually dropped. To learn more, we welcome Molly Bohannon, who covered this issue for the Arizona Center for Investigative Reporting. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so post-secondary, not the best here, huh?
No, yeah, we've been struggling as a state a little bit for the last couple of years.
Talk about the idea back in 2016, what the plan was, what the goal was, what the effort involved was to get to that magic number of 70% by 2030.
Yeah, so in 2016, kind of a coalition launched this goal of 70% post-secondary enrollment. That was part of a larger goal of 60% post-secondary attainment. They had a lot of different efforts to get there. So that 70% number didn't really come with a lot of plans at the time. There was no designated funding or planning around it. It was just a goal that was set. Since then, a lot of efforts have taken place. We've done things like investing in dual enrollment and starting scholarship programs, but there hasn't been a strong coordinated attempt to hit that goal.
And again, when we talk about post-secondary education, we're talking colleges, trade schools, these sorts of things, not just going to a university.
Yeah, universities, community colleges, trade schools all count towards this. And so we're at about 50% in 2024.
So after 10 years, Molly, the number has not increased. It's gone down. What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, the experts I talked to both locally and nationally said that there's no one silver bullet of how to get more kids to continue their education, but it does take a really concerted effort. There needs to be coordination, there needs to be sustained funding, and that was something that a lot of the experts I spoke with didn't see happening in Arizona. There are parts of the state that are doing it really well. There are some districts and schools that have had success, but overall, a lot of people are doing a lot of smaller efforts, not in tandem with together.
The improved areas where you're seeing improved numbers, are they urban areas, rural areas? What are you seeing?
So the decline has been pretty widespread. It's impacted most counties, most demographic groups, but Santa Cruz County has been a high point for the state. They have increased theirs from about, I believe it was 49% in 2016 to about 60% in 2024. As a county, some of those high schools are up to almost 70%, so almost hitting that goal.
That sounds like a best practice, though. Why is it? Are there people watching what's happening in Santa Cruz County?
I think so. I think it just hasn't been, it really does take funding. It takes a lot of work and coordination. And when I talked to the folks down in Santa Cruz County, they were saying we're doing things like they have a lower student to counselor ratio, which helps a lot. They have peer counselors who help their peers get through the FAFSA process and the applying to college process. And so a little more targeted, starting earlier, talking to these students when they're freshmen and sophomores about what the difference between a grant and a scholarship and a loan is something that they've found a lot of success with.
Interesting. Now the numbers suggest, again, you graduate from high school, you either go on to more education or you don't. What about those that don't, but then, after a delay, get to post-secondary? Is that counted here?
That is not counted here. So this data follows students who enroll in the 12 months after. The likelihood of you continuing your education after that 12-month period goes down a bit. So that's kind of where the push comes from to get them enrolled in that 12-month period. But there's no saying students don't take a couple years off, take gap years. Cost of living prices and cost of tuition are really a big part of why students are doing that nationally. So there is that possibility for sure, but this figure specifically tracks in that 12 months.
And in your reporting, what did you find? Obviously, the cost of moving on with education has to be a factor here. I would imagine the time involved. When you graduate from high school, I mean, you think you got no time to do everything. It's got to happen right now. And post-secondary education can take time. Is that a factor?
I think that is a factor. I went to a couple graduation ceremonies and talked to about 50 graduates about their postgraduate plans, and a lot of them were just hesitant about the cost and the time and saying, why would I want to take out loans and pay money to delay making money. Like, I've been in school for,
Right.
a lot of years,
Right.
and I don't want to do 4 more. And a lot of students are distrusting of higher education now, and I think we've seen an increase in that nationally and here. But they're just not being sold on that value.
But to sell them on that value, and boy, we've done a lot of this on this show. We've done this topic a lot on what employers in this state need as far as education, and what they need, they're not necessarily getting. They need more of these kids. I mean, how do you convince them that the jobs are there if the education is there, but you got to go get it?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
that's what all these counselors I spoke to and all these administrators are trying to figure out. They're not sure. I think a lot of it is that students are getting information from a lot of different places these days. A lot of counselors I talked to said students are more educated about the finances of going on to further education than students in the past have been, which is great, right? Like, we want our students to know what they're getting into, but that has deterred a lot of students, and they don't want to take out the loans that maybe they saw cousins or parents take out.
The industries that need the skilled workforce, and there are a lot of industries out there and they're clamoring for it all the time. And we've heard of programs where they're taking a little bit of responsibility and helping train some of these kids once they graduate from high school. Is that making a difference? Is it making a dent at all?
I really didn't look into too many programs like that. I could see that as something from talking to the counselors and the students that I spoke to that would be appealing to them. There are a lot of apprenticeships and things like that, but a lot of that, I believe, is tied to trade schools, and those can also
Yes.
be expensive. I talked to a couple kids who thought they would go to a 4-year, saw that was expensive, thought they would go maybe get a welding certificate, and that was still, tens of thousands of dollars for a shorter period. And that's something where you make good money, but, then they want to have the skills to maybe open their own business one
Yes,
day.
yes.
And I think students just aren't sure what 4 more years will get them.
Last question real quickly here. I mean, these numbers, they're sobering numbers. You're not reaching your goal. You're not even getting there. Is it getting the attention of the education community?
Education nonprofits in the state that track this data have been trying to get these numbers out there for a while. I think that they're saying, the state budget cut funding for a lot of these initiatives this year, and they put out calls saying, Arizona gets the education it invests in, I believe was from a couple of the nonprofits. And so I think people are starting to listen maybe, but, if we want these numbers to change, I think the state has to have that coordination, and that funding is what we heard from experts.
Yeah, that sustained funding especially. Molly Bohannon, Arizona Center for Investigative Reporting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Need you, your tenderness, your understanding heart. I hurt for you each minute we're apart. I need my angel now. Miss you. I miss the funny little things.
As World Cup mania grabs headlines, a new book about soccer aims to help teach kids important lessons that apply both on and off the field. The book is titled Coach Shirley's Soccer Team: Winning the Game of Life. It's a story that teaches kids about teamwork, confidence, and how to believe in themselves. The author, Cherry Prelo. Cherry joins us now along with Coach Shirley herself. I got to tell you, Coach Shirley, I didn't think you really existed.
Yes, I really exist.
You're really here. All right, I'm going to get to you in a second here.
Absolutely.
Cherry, we're going to start with you. Winning the Game of Life is the subtitle here.
Yes.
What's that all about?
It's really about character, right? All of us have God-given talent and potential to be who He has created us to be. And so winning a game of life is just about how do you carry yourself, your confidence, your ability to just believe in yourself and do all the things that you have been called to do, in a sense, right?
And aimed at kids.
And aimed for kids.
Yeah.
So it's for kids, but the message has been resonating with adults as well.
I'll bet.
And so that has been the exciting part about it.
And the book is based on Shirley's laws.
Yes.
Thus, Coach Shirley,
Yes,
who
yes.
really does exist. And you
Yes.
really do have a set of laws, don't you?
I really do. And one of the biggest laws is self-belief, and I will love myself and be accountable for my actions. And it's all done through having fun with sports.
Do you find that kids sometimes, it's interesting, it's hard to believe that some kids just don't believe in themselves deep down. You see that? Do you see that?
Absolutely. And I think that's why the book resonates and why we've been speaking to a lot of children, especially at ASU. But it resonates with kids early. And I think when you talk to the kids early, it resonates early.
Yeah, and you can hear it, can't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shirley's laws, we'll get back to Shirley or Coach Shirley here in a second. Here. But talk to us about, why did you decide that Coach Shirley's laws were something that you wanted to put into a book?
So they were her laws. I wanted to stay really true to the book. The book was really inspired by her and my daughter. And she used soccer as a tool to really teach life lessons, right? And that was just believing herself, loving herself, being confident. And so I wanted to stay true to those exact laws. I didn't want to change anything. So they were actually everything that she created.
Yeah, and Coach, showing up, working together, staying accountable, believing in yourself. I mean, you always have to chant them, don't you? You almost have to repeat them over and over.
We absolutely do. So after homework, my niece and I go outside to play. And before each practice and each game, she has to recite Shirley's laws.
Wow. And does she do a pretty good job?
Absolutely.
And even just reciting the laws and succeeding at that must make her feel better.
It absolutely does. And she knows them. And I can ask her, what's your favorite Shirley's law? And she'll say, I will love myself.
Oh, there you go. Winning isn't just about the game, it's about who you become. That's one of Coach Shirley's laws. Why was that important to you?
I think oftentimes in life, a lot of emphasis can be put on winning. But you have to realize that winning is important, right? We don't want to say winning's not important because here we have FIFA in the World Cup. But we wanted to emphasize it's not just about winning. It's about, who you are becoming, your character as a person. Because oftentimes you can treat somebody terrible. People are going to always remember how you treat them.
Right.
And I think that is the most important thing is the character of a person.
And back to your laws here, and when you try to just get kids to understand this, follow this, take it in their heart, how do you do that without being preachy, without being doctrinary? I mean, how do you do that? Is it just a question of fun and play?
Yes, a question of fun and play. And one of the last law is, and I will have fun.
Yeah. Oh, is that one of the last?
Yes, that's one of the last laws.
All right. Okay, I like that one.
Yeah.
that one I can do. But again, shifting to what you were talking about, shifting from winning, especially when you're competing. This is competition, and it is binary to a certain degree.
Yes.
How difficult is that? To shift from that winning mindset.
I think that it is because, again, it is about your character, right? You can have teammates. You can play on a team. Think about the movie GOAT, right? The main person, the main character, she was not kind to her teammates.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, at the end, she realized that it takes a team to be able to win together. And so that is the focus. You have to work together as a team. You have to be kind to each other. You have to respect each other. And you have to know that the end goal is that we all win together. So if I win, it's no I, right? No I in team. We all win together.
Age group. What kind of age group are we talking about here?
9 to 12.
9 to 12?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a little older than I thought.
Well, it was 5. It's 5 to 8.
5 to 8. Sorry.
Okay. 5 to 8.
5 to 8. Sorry.
5 to 8.
Read Shirley's book. Okay, so 5 to 8. Oh, that's such an interesting age. What made you decide to write this book targeting that particular? Was there an aha moment?
So the aha moment was just really watching them outside playing, but also just being a mom, right? I want my daughter to grow up knowing who she is and being confident and being kind and being caring, but being a team player. So one example of when they're playing outside, the team, my daughter has to cheer on her other teammates, right? This is just them using their imagination. And so she has to be a team player. So it can't just be, I'm going to be the winner or whatever the case. So it was more important of just making sure that was noted in the
Yeah, and you were a former tech writer here. We're kind of running out of time here, but a former tech, you decided to
I'm
write.
still a tech writer.
Are you? I was going to. Okay.
Yes, I'm a tech writer by day, author by night.
Okay, you can write some more. Is Coach Shirley going to appear again, or how's that going to work?
Yes, we have Coach Shirley, School Bus, which is about rules, the importance of rules in life, and hopefully animation.
Coach Shirley, rules on a school bus for kids. What are you getting into?
But I have a lot of fun. Coach Shirley is a lot of fun. She has rules, but she has fun. And I'm just living out the legacy. These were things that I was taught. Our parents taught us. And so I'm just living out the legacy that my mom taught us and making sure that those values instilled in my niece.
Well, congratulations. Keep on fighting the good fight. Congratulations on this book, too. It must be great to write a book here. Cherry Prelo, and again, Coach Shirley, good to have you both here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Betcha.
We're the greatest.
All right. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
When you want to be more inspired, Arizona PBS delivers unforgettable experiences.